You put your wife on the calendar, right? You take her out. And when she see her name on the calendar, you say, hey, anything that's important to me is on the calendar. So you're important to me.
Welcome to the Dad Bod, a podcast that tells the story of what it means to be a dad today, one dad at a time. My name is Sean, and I'm a dad living in New York City with my wife and her two young native New Yorkers. The formula for the Dad Bod is simple. Each episode, we're going to interview one dad to get his story of being a dad. Over time, all of these stories will start to create the bigger story of what it means to be a dad today. Welcome to episode number 4. A big thank you to everyone out there who has been tuning in. I'm enjoying and growing immensely from the experience of putting the Dad Bod together, and it's been really cool to know that people are enjoying the show. If you like what the Dad Bod is all about, give it a 5-star rating in your podcast app to put out some positive vibes and help others find the Dad Bod. Also, if you're interested in staying in the know on all things Dad Bod, go to our website, thedadbodpod.com, and tap the Stay in Touch button. So the voice you heard at the opening of the show belongs to today's guest, my friend and fellow dad, Carlton. Carlton and I became friends while Carlton was doing his job delivering the mail in my neighborhood. Or maybe I should say that we became friends while I was living in his neighborhood, because even though he's Brooklyn born and raised, he's been operating from the Planetarium Post Office since before I ever even set foot in New York. Now, we New Yorkers have a reputation for being unfriendly. That's fair to a degree, but I think it's more accurate and descriptive to say that our MO is to focus on our day-to-day business and to let others do the same. At the same time, because we live in close quarters to one another, some of the most familiar faces in our lives often belong to strangers that you walk past or ride the subway with on a routine basis. The vast majority of the time, a familiar stranger remains a stranger. Rarely do they cross over to become an acquaintance, and rarer still do they cross all the way over to become a friend. But that's what happened with Carlton and me. From our random conversations, it was obvious to me that he is passionate about fatherhood and mentorship. So even though we didn't know each other well, I had this feeling that it would be really great to have him as a guest on the Dad Bod. He graciously accepted my request to sit with me for an interview, and thus we have today's episode. For the interview, I took the 2 train to the end of the line near Carlton's neck of the woods in Brooklyn. From there, he drove us another 10 minutes or so to the Christian Cultural Center, aka CCC. When you hear Carlton mention something taking place here throughout the interview, he's referring to CCC. On this particular Wednesday morning, CCC was bustling with activity for FDNY graduation ceremony. As we walked through the building, Carlton exchanged hugs, handshakes, and banter with just about everybody and introduced me to everyone. The warmth and strength of Carlton's community was tangible. I could feel why he credits CCC with changing his life, and as you listen to Carlton speak, he does indeed sound like a person who is living a changed life, a person who has searched and wandered, experienced adversity and trauma, mourned and processed his trauma on his own and in community, has done the work to become something new, and is now sharing all of that wisdom, perspective, and presence back with others. I'm very grateful and excited to be sharing this conversation with you, as well as a little something different and new that I put at the very end of the episode. Okay, enough talking now. Let me get out of the way and roll the interview. Carlton, Daddy's boy dad. Tell me about where you grew up, and especially your parents. Tell me about your parents. I know from our conversations, I have a bit of a sense, a little bit of a picture of your parents. Fill out that picture for me.
So I'm a daddy's boy. A lot of people don't believe that because my dad died in 1999. So just growing up, things were just been a little hard to know that my dad passed away, and I felt that God that hated me. My father worked for Ideal Toy Company that made the Rubik's Cube.
Okay.
The Missing Link. I wish I had bought one. I have one that's a calendar, and then you got to put it together. So as a kid, I was spoiled. Because my father would like wake me up and say, you want to go to the factory? Because he was a supervisor there. And on Saturday, most of the work crew wasn't there, and I would sit there on a time belt and try to put a toy together. So I always liked the quality times where my father used to walk me on the street and go shopping. Those were important to me, to know that my dad was there. And when he passed away, it was hard. It was hard. I felt that God hated me. You know, I was like, why would you do that in that time in life? Because I was taking my timeline for granted and not knowing that dad was going to be leaving. So now I feel like I'm playing catching up when I was going to the hospital. And my dad realized, like, son, you know, dad's going to be gone. And that broke me. And that was hard for me. That was trauma for me.
How old were you?
I was 26. But I was still trying to figure out. Because men don't talk a lot. My father's coming back from where he used to plant and stuff like that. He had to take care of his siblings and stuff like that. He had to drop out of school to take care of his brothers and sisters. So my father was a farmer. He used to wake me up in the morning, go plant tomatoes and pumpkins and stuff like that. Yes, so that was my father. So he wasn't the highest of educator, but he was there for me. And he made sure that I had a curfew. And he brought me up in a safe neighborhood, but still, 9 o'clock, get in. Even in the summer, I said, Dad, all my friends are outside. Son, you gotta come in. Find something in the house to do, but you're not gonna be out. And I was upset. I think that's why I became a little rebellious when I got around 18 and tried to figure out myself. My mother was a nurse. She worked at nights. So I never really went to the doctor emergency room when I had a certain pain, because my mother knew what to do. And that's why I was like, when I grow up, I want to marry a nurse. I didn't marry a nurse, but I just knew I didn't have to go pay those bills, right? Like when my son gets sick now, I got to take her. My wife say, take him to the, I was like, we really got to go because I'm being conditioned. I didn't have to go. There was remedies, you know, and I had the perfect parents. I would never, all the issues, I would never take back anything or what I went through. My father was very strict. Again, when I was hanging out with the wrong crowd that he didn't want me to hang out with, he hit me. And a Caucasian family said, you want me to have your father arrested? Because they saw. And I was like, no. Because I didn't want to lose my father, go to jail for something like that. And my father had to understand because, again, growing up, that's probably what he went through. And that's his only way of him acting and say, hey, son, I don't want you to go on that wrong road. So you try to do something that you shouldn't do, and I need you to listen to me while you're living underneath this roof. I learned that later on. I was upset. When he hit me, I was, you know, when you get to a certain age, you feel you could take out your father.
How old were you when you hit
I was
you?
about 14, 15, and he hit me really good. I felt like he broke my rib. My father he had a machete and he had a nice stick, so nobody used to mess with him. And my mother saw that and she's like, this is not what we do in America. So my brother was in the military and my mother sent me away to my brother in Texas for the summer, just to detox that and be with my brother. Everything was smooth with my father. As I grew up older, I understood. Today we would call that abuse. But I understood why he did that.
So after he did that, that's when, because of that and the tension from that, then you went to Texas. Your mom sent you to Texas for that reason.
Yeah, for the summer.
Air it out.
Yeah, air it out. And then she talked to him and said, hey, you can't do that. You have to find other ways to communicate. Just like how our children at small, the emotion is to cry.
Right.
That was my father he saw me hanging out with somebody that he didn't think was good for me to hang out with. Because I could still remember certain trauma you can remember in your life, and I have to look at it. I remember I was right by a big tree, and I thought I outsmarted my father because I was hanging out at a house. And when I was coming out, I could see my father through the side of my eye down the block because I had very good vision. I was like, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
So I hopped over the fence and went around the corner, and I stood there maybe about 2-3 minutes. Then I made a big wide turn because I thought in my head, I'm going to act like I went to the store. When I came around the block to the store, walking down, he said, "Son, where were you?" I said, "I was coming from the store." He said, "No, you wasn't." I didn't even know he had something behind his back. And he just went, pow. I was like, wow. I was like, "Dad, you really did that?" You know, neighbors was out there. And I said, "Dad, you really did that?" That was embarrassing. I was more embarrassed than the pain at the time. And I told my mom. And that's when she decided to send me to Texas. And she talked to him, and my brother talked to me. Because my brother was a pastor out there in the Army.
Okay.
So I was on a military base for the summer. They was trying to recruit me now. So I got up early in the morning, 5 in the morning, to do push-ups,
Got a taste of
to
it.
run, cat holes. And he's like, "Run, soldier, run, soldier." I said, "Wait a minute, I'm not here for that."
I'm visiting.
I visited. I'm just an outlet to that. And he said, "Your time was pretty good. What you could have did fast." I said, "Number one, I didn't know the line of travel. I would just follow another person. I was just running because I had good speed when I was growing up." But God works with our future as his history, and our past is a place of reference, not a place of residence. And since you brought up that question, we can go back and dot the I's and understand the reason why. And a lot of times when we go through trauma, we wondering why they hit us, but we need to understand the other person.
Right.
We don't listen to understand. And I realized just doing mentoring that listen and silent is the same letters in different order, but requires the same energy. And we don't listen. Our wives say we don't listen.
I've been
Right?
told.
Right? You just want to respond, but you need to understand their trauma. And I learned in life, only one of us could be in the hospital. Right? So we have to take on the role as the doctor and listen to what the victim said and say we're sorry.
So what was the reconciliation like for you and your father?
My father wasn't much of a word. He showed his love for what he did for me. And I love my dad. I love my dad. You can hear me. I don't say he's my father. He's a dad. And I loved him for where he wanted a better life, for not just for me, but for my sister and my brothers. And he didn't drive. He made sure my mother had a car she can drive. He didn't drive. He took the train. And he took me everywhere. And he was proud of me. And that's what you want to hear as a little kid, that you're proud of your son. So his way was just showing me that he was proud. I just loved the quality times with him, just sitting. This reminded me of me sitting down playing checkers with him and the barbecue. So, you miss those stuff, but you appreciate it now and realize that you are given stewardship. And now you get to implement the things that your father has taught you or your mother has taught you. Now, my parents are from Jamaica. When they came here, they knew that they didn't want to be treated different. My mother didn't want to be treated different because of her accent. So she makes sure she speak the American way. And she was a nurse. So she's like, sometimes you have to know how to fit in, son. And I learned that. I took on that because when I go to juvenile prison, I make sure I dress to fit in. For my father, being a hard worker, providing, being there for your kids. I remember when I got pink eye, who showed up to the school at 8th grade? My dad. When the school asked me, "Were you smoking?" I'm like, "Smoke? My father would kill me." I was afraid to bring a girl home. I couldn't even close my door. Well, you didn't say, was I smoking? But, we need an image. As men, we need an image. And he was the image that I will never change for the world. All right? Every son has their story with their dad, but I would never change my story.
You've been through a lot, obviously, with your dad passing. For any other dads out there who are maybe going through something like that, or have gone through it and maybe had a hard time processing it, do you have any kind of advice or wisdom?
It's a process. Me getting through it is different from somebody else getting through it. And you're going to have moments when you're going to break down. Men don't like to cry. Cry. Because it's a cry of joy. Cry that you loved him, right? That dash, Life is how you live that dash. And be around a positive crowd. Mental illness for men is serious. And when life squeezes you, what is the words you have to say to yourself? You have to have the most important thing every day when you get up is the words that you say to your psyche. And it's very important for you to say the right words and appreciate. Don't feel like a victim and say, hey, if you could have done this, Dad would still be here. No. God knew he was going to come home, and I needed that change because I was trying to figure out myself. So I felt guilty that I was running around hanging out with different crowds to try to figure out what's my identity. Mm-hmm. But my identity was through my dad, and at that time was a little bit late. So the process could be long for someone or it could be short. But also for me, I found some good men's group, and they gave me a different perspective. And that's how I became, involved with the church and into God. Because I didn't know at that time that God created my dad.
Before that, you were not a man of faith before then.
I was brought up in the church, but I was like, they're hypocrites. My pastor used to sleep out. It didn't have no contents to it.
It was empty.
It was empty.
At best, maybe.
Right. So I was like, nah, that's not for me. So I was trying to figure out myself. They was mad that I left. So, it's tough when you got that trauma that hits you. But I would tell any guy that's going through it, process it and take your time and appreciate it, because if it wasn't for your dad, you wouldn't be here. Your mother also too. And talk with some positive people who you can trust to help you walk you through it.
So those people, you mentioned a men's group. Mm-hmm. I imagine some other men who helped to lift you up through that.
Yes, so there was another gentleman. It's so funny. God got a funny sense of humor. My father died when he was 77. He passed away when he was 77. When I came here, a guy named Deacon Brown became my father. And he also passed away at 77. Oh, wow. And he reminded me so much of the characteristic of my dad, because I don't give my dad back talk. Even if he's wrong, you still listen, because you only need his roof. And he taught me some things. He's the one that taught me that, hey, you put your wife on the calendar, right? You take her out. And when she see her name on the calendar, you say, hey, anything that's important to me is on the calendar, so you're important to me. He's the one that taught me those principles. He was there to walk me through certain things in life. And he would talk to me all the time, and he relocated to Florida. And he reminded me so much like my father, because he didn't tell me he was sick. Mm. And then he ended up passing away too, and that was like,
again,
right? Yeah. But then you get a little stronger, because again, you understand life is temporary on earth.
Yeah.
You get to understand that it's kind of like Monopoly. Mm-hmm. You play the game, you build your real estate and all that, but we all go in the same box, right, at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. But life is about how you live that dash again. So find a good mentor. We all need a good mentor as men. An image.
Yeah.
Right? I won't know love until I see Sean.
Yeah.
Because you give an example of love.
Right.
So now I know what love is. You don't measure darkness, you measure light. You don't measure cold, you measure heat. So once I see that in you, then I know the opposite, and I say, you know what? I don't want to be dark.
Right.
I want to be light. And Sean, how can I be the light?
Tell me more about this place that we're at. This is obviously a place that is really meaningful to you. Tell me about it.
So this is Christian Culture Center in Brooklyn and Canarsie. This is the place that changed my life. Gave me a different perspective on how I look at things. Gave me a model for life on how to be better as a man in America or a man around the world. I give credit to Dr. A.R. Bernard, who's the visionary of this church. I give gratitude to Dr. Honorio, who was my mentor. He relocated to Florida. PJ, Pastor Jamal, going on mission trips with him. and helping the unfortunate gave me a different perspective. This church is planted for the community. It's for all diversities. And that's what I loved about it. And when I came here, if you ever hear preachers or pastors or rabbis, a lot of them are sometimes yelling. You know, they yell when they're giving their word. Dr. A. Barnard was just teaching. And then he just made it so simple that, you know, when he put it in the biblical perspective, he was like, okay, there was no law, but there had to be law so you have understanding. And I was like, wow. And that was the same thing that's in our household, because if you're better as a man, then your family's so much better. And I needed that at that time of my life.
What time in your life was that?
Before I was 30.
Okay.
Before I was 30, that was just still figuring out. And listen, we still under construction. We still figuring it out.
Yeah,
we not.
absolutely.
I'm going to tell you right now, you never arrive. All right, you never arrive. And I needed to change my group. If you're the smartest one in your group, you need to change your group. So these are one of the things that he had shared with us. He put out a book, and he said 4 things that a woman like to see in a man and 4 things that men struggle with. And it's maturity, decisiveness, consistency, and strength. Those are 4 things that women look for us to have. That's 4 things we're struggling with. And not saying that women don't need that too. They also need that. But that's 4 things that they need. They need to see us mature. And I was like, what do maturity looks like? And decisive, to make that quick decision. And being consistent. You know, a lot of times when you look at men and you hear story, we're not consistent. And strength. She want to see the strength in you. And when I heard that, I was like, wow. And that's why I joined this men group, because I wanted that. I wanted to be with more men and hear their stories so I could be stronger and not give up. So that was powerful for me to hear that type of teaching and say, that's 4 things that I'm failing at. But that's 4 things we could be better with. And we still striving towards to have that.
So when you joined that group, you were sort of a new member. I was looking for just, I'm hungry for guidance and for mentorship.
So when I came in, I was with the youths.
Okay.
They have a step team. So I was hanging with the youth. I thought, okay, because I was doing stuff, going to camp with them, and just being the bigger brother. And a gentleman, Dr. Honorio, saw me on one Wednesday, and he said, why don't you come upstairs? We have, he has something going on upstairs. He didn't tell me. I feel like I was bamboozled. I came in there was maybe about 180 guys.
Oh, wow.
And I was sitting on the inside row. And it's like, oh, we about to join this fraternity. I was like, I don't want to join no fraternity. I don't want to join no group. I'm the type of person that could move by myself. But I didn't want to hop over the 2 other guys, so I sat there.
He made it inconvenient for you to leave.
Right, I just felt wrong just leaving, right? So when I heard, and I said, let me sit here. And then I got involved for 3 years. The process was 3 full years.
Okay.
And I have to tell you, that was 3 full years of my life. We went on retreats where we had to do team building. We out in the woods, following the voice, throwing like a pad, and I have to say Sean, because you have to learn each other's names. Sean, here. Right, just building with team, climbing over the wall. I remember we had the biggest guy on our team. He was like 3-something. I was like, how we gonna get him over the wall? Why we had to have him? And I remember Jason said, I'm gonna go over the wall, right? And 2 of the guys, that we got him over the wall. And that was fun, building. Yeah. And I was like, this is the place I need to be. The things that I have learned here, I said I can't be a fat lamb. I have to give back. So that's why today you see me involved with juvenile prison, young life, going away with the youths, or mission trips, or right now as one of the leaders for the Brooklyn team of building men from out of CCC. It's just an honor. I don't deserve it, but I learned he don't qualify you, he qualified the call. And it's a calling on our lives to do what we do. And we have to realize that, and can you hear the voice, right, to serve like what you're doing right now? Or are you going to pick up the phone and give a vehicle where voices can be heard? And that's how I look at it too, because being a leader is to serve, it's action. And I want to embody that the best way that I can. Now, when I go into the juvenile prison, they think I'm the officer to come in to get some info. And I said, no, I'm not here for that. I'm here because I love you. Because some of those youth never heard that word.
How do they react?
They're astonished because, like, you don't know me.
Yeah.
Because when I look back at it, and Sean, in our house growing up, I really never hear my dad say he loved me. It's not that he didn't love me, but he was so busy doing the chores as a dad, he didn't take time to say that. So one of the things that we do as adults, I love you, man. That's a wellness check and letting you know I love you, right? Because the prayers are our Father. So if it's not our Father, that means you're my brother, right? This outside part is rented. So I love you, Sean.
Yeah.
So when I go into the juvenile prison, I tell them I love you. They are intelligent. I mean, the reason why they're in prison because of attention, broken homes. So they did things for outlet just to get their attention. And they know they didn't really mean to do it. But if they had a better home, be in a better community, or some outlets, some projects to do out there, they would be different. Because some of them want to be doctors, some want to be vet, some want to be medical doctors. It's just amazing. Some of them can write some good poetry. So I realized the 3 Ps. And one of the 3 Ps is profess. When you get married, you profess your love when you say I do. For them, because they didn't get it in the household, they profess it for the gangs. Bloods, Crips, you name, the ABC, all those different gangs. Because I've been in prison, every race was in prison. So I got to experience to see the whole different diverse behind that closed door. And I'll be there for hours, right? Just giving my time until they take their shower. I go down even when they eat their dinner. Some of the dinner, I'm like, But I was there spending that time.
Yeah.
The second P is to protect, right? As a gentleman, we open the car door for our lady, not just because it's a new car, we open the door, right? But for them, they didn't get that at home, so on the street, they protect the block. You can't come on West End. You're not from this neighborhood. Then the last P is to provide. As a husband, you're supposed to provide for your wife and your kids. And since that was broken, they went to the streets to provide by selling drugs, credit cards, you name it. And it's to take that hustle that they were doing and turn it into a positive, because God wastes nothing. You did that, but God still loved you. And the only thing I told him, the difference between you and me when I was growing up, I didn't get caught. Not saying I did those same stuff,
Right.
but if you look at it as a sin, we all sin, and when we look in front of God, who am I to judge you because you did that and I stole a pencil, right? And I sat with them and said that, life could be better. And some of the mothers would talk to me because they don't get to see their kids. And they told me they struggled when their father died. And this one story, the father died and he had a business and she didn't know how to run the business. And she had to downsize to a 1-bedroom, and she would give him the bedroom. And she and her daughter would sleep in the living room. Because of that struggle, he ended up just getting caught up in the wrong thing by accident on a train. And that just gave me more of a reason to be involved, to hear some of these stories. Yes, some of the stories, it's murder their cousin, or had one that the young lady murdered her mother, and the boyfriend murdered the stepfather. Yes, you hear those stories, but then we hear the brokenness and the reason why. And then you wonder why nobody never reached out to them until it got to that point. And that's one of the reasons I'm just, sometimes just sitting there and talk. And sometimes, and through the game of playing cards. And we just talk and they say, thank you. Some of them say thank you. I don't go in there and preach into them. But some of them might come and say, hey, can you pray for me so I can go through this? All right? So I can make it through. Some of them, but then you got some of them are real hard-headed, all right, because you got to look tough when you go back out.
Right.
But the ones that wanted to change, those are the ones that touched me, and it gave me a reason to show up there every day for about 6 years. From a Sunday, I was going on a Sunday, then it changed to a Wednesday. It taught me a lot. I seen fights in there, and I was like, I got to break up this fight. Some of the worst fights were the females. I remember I had to go in there in the females' pen. Didn't want to do that because I think another female should go in there. But I needed to be there that day. And it was, that fight that day was, wow. It was a lot of just anger. And it's sad because they're young. And you want to be led. It's important who is led because, Sean, if you and I wasn't led in the right direction, we wouldn't be sitting here today.
We'd be
the same place. Easily. That's why it's so important who's in mirror. And I remember having some of these kids, and every time their dad gets to come over, the mother would say something bad, and that relationship doesn't get to be there. And I remember I had to change this kid in 3 different rooms. He said, somebody stole my money. And then when we sat down and had the cabin talk, that's when he broke down. It got into dad, and he's like, I don't get to see my dad. And I was like, wow. And he told me. And I made sure when we got back from the trip, I told the mother, it's like, this was an opportunity to see his dad, and you was bashing his dad. And this is why he was acting up the whole week. And she just broke down and cried because she was taking out her frustration.
Yeah.
And you can't bleed on people who didn't cut you. And she realized that. I said, if you want your son to be okay, you can't do that. And she said, thank you. So that was just my passion to be with, and I get a balance. That was just my passion to be with the future leaders. And then I get to be with the sage leaders. And it's just been a blessing to me just to be part of this. And this is the reason why I move in a positive way. I'm not perfect. Not saying I never react, because I am a union delegate at work, and people will test you, right? And I always tell them, you know what, I'm a person first, then a believer. So I believe just like you and me, so let's have respect each other.
So in addition to the stuff you do that you've done with the juvenile detention centers and through Young Life, there's another group that you meet with here. So tell me about that group.
So this group here is a 1.5 year process with ICB men. We build men to change their perspective on how they look at things. Because we as men, we need assignments. We need direction. Just like how you tell your money direction where it needs to go, we need assignments. We need to know that we can't just act out in emotions. Why are you acting that way? Because I learned now that decision is not made in the moment, it's made in your character. And we do things according to patterns. So we come here, it's like, why do you do that? Is it making the house better? And then when we do have our crossover, our ceremony, after they finish the first season, the families get to come. And part of the ceremony, we allow the families to stand up and say things with the changes that they see in their husband, brothers, or son. And that part is what hit. It's like, wow, it is really powerful. And it allows us to know that what we're doing is right.
What's your role?
I wanted the
Okay.
core leadership. I lead a team. We didn't come up with a name right now. I'm also part of just all behind the scenes getting it together. I patch wherever I need to be, but I seem to be one of the key leaders for Brooklyn, because we also have this in Long Island and Jersey. So I will consider the Brooklyn chapter that oversees the guys. And I'm the connector. You know, I try to get them into the right groups that they need to get to. So that's also just been a blessing to me, just being part of this. And we're about to go into season 2. And they got to do stuff like they're in college. They got to do a heritage paper. And if they don't do it, they're not crossing over. Because they need to understand what they've been through and where they're going. Life is about moving forward, right? Not backwards. And one of the things I told the guys, and we all going through this, all exits are good, but not all of them are right. And a lot of time we got off on the wrong exit, financially, relationships, right? Because I go to the doctor in Long Island. I remember the first time I went to the doctor and I got off the wrong exit. It delayed my arrival. So we want your arrival to be on time. And a lot of times we want to have control. We want it on our time. But we have to do it on God's time because of all the distractions that we got caught up into and delays we go to. So we could determine our own wilderness and how long we stay in it. And that's why I said earlier about the trauma, we determine how long we're going to sit there and soak when we lose a loved one. Because if I sit there and soak longer on my father, then how can I really be healthy for my son and my daughter? There will be things that kill your faith, but you have to keep on pushing. You have to keep on pushing. Because life is about moving forward. So you get that time with God and you say, why? Why with me? He said, why not? Because that's what's building you. You can handle this. Because it could have been something worse. So when I look and say, how am I able to handle all of this? I have to say nothing but God. And something that the burning why that he put inside me to show up. Because every day I got to show up for my son, show up for my daughter, show up for my wife, show up at my job, show up for the ICB men, show up when I was doing the juvenile, showed up when we went to missions. But you do what you got to do. You pour out and you don't want to leave nothing when you pass away. There's so much more that I need to know about myself. Yeah. I have to say I'm just getting started because I never thought I'd be doing this. Not me. 20 years ago, I would just thought, hey, I'll get into computers. My dad was still alive. Just simple life. I didn't think I'd ever get married. Just lay back, simple. It wasn't no focus. Hanging out with the fellas. So the years before, it was no direction. But now I see some type of direction, right? Because it always changes when you're looking at a vision board and what you want to do with yourself. Because we need to focus on something. If you want a house, you have a picture. So you put that on a vision board. You could put down a bank that you want a better bank account. You could put down a lady who you want to marry. Certain goals that you want. And once you accomplish those goals, then you could change your vision board. If it's a car you want, you could start off small or what high school you want to go to, right? We need to have a focus. We need to aim at something, or we be hitting nothing all the time. So when I picked my wife, was she the perfect one? Yes, for me. But we have the 80-20% rule. There's that 20% that you wish she would do. But she tolerated so much things with me. And I tolerate so much things with her. So a lot of times when we want to step out and go on the other side and we think the grass is greener, it's just been spray painted. You have to come back and put in work, right? I learned that marriage is just a working permit. Because it identifies your character. Yeah. And it's work. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's work. Because it's two different characters, two different cultures. And I believe that at the end of the day, we want the same thing because she's emotional. So she would say it the one way, and we can clash. But we work into a common goal. And what we want is better for ourselves, because I learned if we have it better, then it overflows to our kids. Right. So I enjoy it, but it's work. And sometimes the men, we don't want to have that work. When he said, we need to talk, honey. I think I need to stay at work a little bit later. Right? Because they see things at a different way. And sometimes as men, we get caught up that because we give them certain things that they're happy. And I had to learn that's not true. All right? I had to figure it out for myself because I didn't get to sit down with my parents and ask them, It's not like a car. You test drive it, and you're like, that's a 4-cylinder. Let me
Read
try
the
to say,
reviews.
reviews.
No,
You don't get that here.
You don't.
And my parents never really sat down with me. So I'm learning it now. So when I talk to Sean, and I talk to him, I learned. I said, what? You went through problems too? And this is why you have to have quality time, date nights. Just the two of y'all time to build and grow.
So what's the key for you, like, to recharge? How do you recharge?
I do have certain mentors in my cabinet that I can go to recharge. I do like to listen to some positive stuff, positive perspective, because I'm big on, I was taught that your perspective gives your perception, determines your approach, and your approach determines either it's going to be positive or negative. But it always goes back to how you see things through your lens. And if you see it wrong, you could be telling yourself a lie through your whole life. I make sure I come to church every Sunday. I really don't miss church because that sets me up for Monday. Now, I can understand why people don't want to go to church, because I've been there. Because church people could be hypocrites. The Bible is written not to us, but for us, because we're not from that era. But it gives you some guidelines that you can get through life. And God only just wants a better life for you. So if you could go to a good base teaching church that can help you get through things in life, then I said go for it. Now, we know not all food is good for you. So not all churches are good for you. But for me, church has changed the way of life for me. And this is not a church. You're the church, and this is a building, right? So we have to learn that first, number one. And we have to learn that God loves you through all the things you go through, right? Because right now, my mother and my father are my ancestors. So you could walk around as an orphan. So for me, that was the way for me to go, was church. It might not be for somebody else. It might be some type of program or something for them. But for me, the program was church for me. And church is not a bad idea. Church is one big hospital. We all patients in here, and we all know that we all under construction. And we'll never arrive. And we always look to be better. And we uplift each other. We go through things, but we uplift each other. When my mother passed away, this church was here for me. The guys were here for me. I didn't even think I could have done that without them. They pushed my mother out in the coffin, put her into the hearse, because none of my brothers wanted to do it. My sister wanted to do it. And if it wasn't, you had some good people to be the wall, right? We always see the carpet, Sean. But if you take up the carpet, you don't see the concrete that holds you up. So you have to have that. That mother is the foundation. That's the love, that's emotion. And once that's going out the family, it's like, who's going to take up that spot? And one of the things I had to learn is when my father passed away, if I thought I had to continue his assignment. No, you have to do your assignment, what God's called you to do. I had to learn that. So it's still a process. So I said church is a beautiful thing. Are you going to get hurt in church? Yes. You get hurt in a relationship. But if you get hurt in a relationship and stay, now you're in a relationship. Because relationship has a ship at the end. When they go through hardship, what is it that you're going to worship? For me, it was for God. I just want to learn it on a different perspective, on a teaching basis. And it's just been a beautiful thing to me, just learning from that perspective and looking at life different.
When I hear you talk and think about all these things that you're doing, what I love about it is how you are so strong. And I think the strength that I see is from a number of places, but one of them is I feel like you're somebody who's held up by others, who you have a ton of support, and in turn, you are giving that support back. And in the giving of that support, my sense is you get you get a lot of strength from that as well. And I think that not only is that a beautiful model, but it's also one that I feel we don't see enough. As men, I feel like we, especially as dads, in general, our role is to be the ones with the answers, to be the ones to fix the problems. So we're not naturally asked, not routinely asked to be vulnerable, on top of the fact that we didn't have models for vulnerability. So put a good word out there into the mic to those guys out there, which are many of us, who don't feel connected to other guys, who don't have a sense of community. You've said a lot already.
It's
One more
important.
time. Yeah.
It's important. And for we as men, we're taught to be Superman, but never to identify as Ken. And if we can identify as Ken, or let our ladies know about Ken, then they can respect Superman so much more. Or your family respects Superman so much more. Because the motto is, from when we was kids, Sean, when we fell off the bike, we was told to get up and ride again, don't cry. Where we have the opportunity to grow and to understand. So now when we get older, there's like, you can cry. But I couldn't cry when I was little. But when I look at my son, and it's amazing, when he was small, he made so much noise just to get a bottle. And sometimes in life, we have to go through some sharp pain in order to make our point. So I learn now, and I tell the guys, it's okay to cry now. I don't look at you no different way. But we're going to get past what you put in the closet so you can get to where you need to go. In life, you go through three things. You're about to go in a problem, just come out of a problem. For us who watch the news, we can look at it this way. We're about to go in a storm, or just come out of the storm. But when you watch the news and you see the eye of the storm, that's a resting place for us. And it's not until you get into a situation that you can make adjustment. Or it's not until halftime the coach come in and say, hey, we down, but if we make these adjustments, we can win the game in the second half. We're designed to win. We're victorious. We just have to know that.
So for you, growing up not really being one to cry, your dad not saying I love you to you, not because he didn't love you, but because too busy and maybe not part of his culture, maybe not just kind of part, maybe he didn't hear that.
Exactly.
He didn't hear that either. So when did you start crying? When did you start learning to say I love you? Hear it, to receive it?
I didn't fully process it then, Sean, but when my father passed away, that's when I cried. And I wanted to go home and cry. My brother would not let me go home. He said, you have to stay here. And I weep, and I weep, and I weep. And my cousins came to the car, and it's like, it's okay. And I was like, I love that man. I love that man. Because love means let our violence end. He loved me. Because he gave so much to me, he didn't realize it. He allowed me to be a son. And when you could be a son, you can enjoy your life. See, when you don't have your daddy in your life, you have to know how to be the man in the house. I didn't have to be the man in the house. I got to be the son. And that was important to me. He allowed that. So right there, and I didn't fully process it, I love that man. And that's why I realized it. I didn't get to put it to teachings yet, to principle yet. But when I got older, and I was like, I got to say that I love. Because I learned in a circle, you don't see where it's open. So if you love the person, you should be able to reciprocate it and get that love back. You don't see the breaking in there.
So shift gears a little bit.
Yes, sir.
I want to get into your Dad Bod. And I'll say a little bit about why the podcast is called the Dad Bod. It's a metaphor in a lot of ways because everybody still remembers what it was like to be young. But you're not old yet. You still got a lot in you, but you're dealing with stuff. There's a lot on you. Literally, you're probably not getting enough sleep. You've got too many things on your plate. You maybe don't have a lot of people to talk to. So there's all kinds of tension that are playing out in our lives. And I feel like our bodies mirror that. Gain a little weight, or the blood numbers aren't looking too good, or things like that. So I think it's kind of an interesting thing for us to examine specifically our bodies. So how's your dad bod? What's been going on with it lately? What are you working on?
Oh, I need to exercise more because, believe it or not, I got up with a cramp. I couldn't sleep on my right side of the hip because I was sleeping on it. It caused me to, not walk like how I usually walk. So that's starting to let you know that you got to start treating your body different. Because we so much giving out, right?
Exactly.
And if we don't take care of you, I can't lend you $1 unless I have it for myself. So we have to start taking care of ourselves. So that's one of the things I need to do is just implement some time for more exercise. The fat on the stomach, I need to lose that. From the pandemic, I refuse to buy any new suits or new clothes. So something has to give. Is I'm going to wear my jackets with my jackets open, or I'm going to start losing this weight. So I want to lose this weight because we want to be around for our kids. We want to be around for our wives. We want to be around for our loved ones. And that's one of the things about this men group is spiritually, health, and financially. Those are the three things that we look to build. So health-wise, because of the pandemic, things change. Even if you didn't get COVID, you got it mentally. And we have to change as men, take care of ourselves. Men don't like to go to the doctor. Once I knew my father died from prostate, I went in and they didn't want to look at me because they said I was too young. And I was like, please just check me. So we used to have men health fairs that we look to have so men go. We need to go to the doctors as men because I need to see you around, Sean. Right? I need to see you around, Carlton. So go to the doctor. I went to my doctor early this year. I went to check my colon.
Yeah.
You do those things so you could be around for your family. You might get scared, and some of the perspective is, well, I need to go to the doctor, and the doctor is in worse shape than me, right? Because we look at image,
Right.
all right? But we need to go. We need to go, man. We have to go to the doctor and check what's going on because we sacrifice our health for work or for the money. Right. And then later on, we sacrifice in the money for the health. And at the end of the day, we just trying to do the best and work hard for the freedom so we can be there for our families.
That's right. I love that. That's a vision. That's a vision for why health matters. Be there for your kids, not just in terms of longevity, but quality too.
Yes.
That we could be in good shape today so that they get a daddy who's able to run around and stick with them. And
yeah. My son is fast.
Lift him up, yeah.
I'm just jogging, and he's pretty quick. I'm like, all right.
Thank you, Carlton, for being on the show and demonstrating what that looks like to be vulnerable. I hope you had as much fun as I did doing this. This is awesome. I look forward to seeing you in the neighborhood.
Yes. It's an honor. It's an honor to be part of something greater than you. And that's what we have to do. What you're doing is greater than you. What I'm doing is greater than me. And once you can see a vision, that's what a vision is. If a vision is just about you, then it's not a vision. I learned from here, a system is saving yourself some time, energy, and money. You have to learn the system in everything. And to institute in our neighborhoods. And it could be better because I learned once the house is better, then the block is better, then the city's better, then the state is better, and then the world is better. Indeed. But it goes back to the house and where is dad? And that's why this is important. So again, this is an honor.
Thank you.
Honor again, Jam. Yes, sir.
Episode 4 of the Dad Bod is in the books. But stick around for a few more minutes for a little bonus material based on today's episode. Big thanks to today's guest, Carlton, for sharing his story. I hope you enjoyed the episode and that it brought a little something positive to your life. If you like what we're doing with the Dad Bod, please consider taking a moment to post up a positive review or email me at sean@thedadbodpod.com. That's Sean with a W at thedadbodpod.com. Thanks everyone for listening. Okay, Carlton, take us home.
God works with our future as his history, and our past is a place of reference, not a place of residence. 20 years ago, I would just thought, hey, I'll get into computers. My dad was still alive. Just simple life. I didn't even think I'll ever get married. Hanging out with the fellas. So the years before, it was no direction. But now I see some type of direction. I needed to change my group. If you're the smartest one in your group, you need to change your group. Four things that a woman like to see in a man, and the four things that men struggle with. And it's maturity, decisiveness, consistency, and strength. So that was powerful for me to hear that type of teaching and say, that's four things that I'm failing at. You put your wife on the calendar, right? You take her out. And when she see her name on the calendar, you say, hey, anything that's important to me is on the calendar. So you're important to me. And I realized just doing mentoring that listen and silent is the same letters in different order, but requires the same energy. So one of the things that we do as adults, I love you, man. That's a wellness check and letting you know I love you. He don't qualify you, he qualified a call. And it's a calling on our lives to do what we do. And we have to realize it. And can you hear the voice? Right? To serve. Being a leader is to serve. It's action. And I want to embody that the best way that I can. We need to know that we can't just act out in emotions. Why are you acting that way? Because I learned now that decision is not made in the moment, it's made in your character. And we do things according to patterns. So we come here, it's like, why do you do that? Is it making the house better? There will be things that kill your faith. But you have to keep on pushing. You have to keep on pushing. I love that man. I love that man. Because he gave so much to me, he didn't realize it. He allowed me to be a son. See, when you don't have your daddy in life, you have to know how to be the man in the house. I didn't have to be the man in the house. I got to be the son. Once the house is better, then the block is better, then the city's better, then the state is better, and then the world is better. But it goes back to the house and where is dad?